You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is David. I am here to tell you up front at the beginning, this episode is one of my favorites I've recorded, but that said, it went way over the usual recording time, so we're going to have to split this into 2 episodes. The beginning of this will be the introduction with Bradley Rydholm, who is curator and the creator of the Nature is Not Metal page, not to be confused with the Nature is Metal page on Instagram. Excellent discussion about nature, humanity, and our relationship with animals. The first episode of this 2-part episode will be the beginning. The second part, after we get really cooking and start talking about like philosophy and, more heady things like that, the second episode will be great, but you definitely should listen to the first episode to, get the background of what we're talking about and things like that. So with that said, here's episode 1 of the interview with Bradley Rydholm, who is the curator of Nature is Not Metal.
Welcome to episode 39 of Ethnocynology. I'm here with Bradley Rydholm. Is that how you say it?
Yep. Bradley Rydholm or Rydholm.
Rydholm. Okay, Rydholm. We've talked before. I should remember that. But people always get mad when I ask the guests how to pronounce their name. I just want to make sure people know when they're reading it.
I've never been mad at that, so no worries there.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that, man. But yeah, we're here with Bradley of Nature is Not Metal, one of my favorite Instagram pages. It's not Nature is Metal. It's Nature is Not Metal. I'll put that here. But yeah, man, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? And I know you a little bit, but just for the audience.
Yeah, my name is Bradley. I am currently based out of LA. I'm from the Midwest. I'm currently an outdoor educator, so I teach a variety of topics outside, largely about local plants and wildlife, and we've run the Nature is Not Metal page for a few years, and that's where I met you through, and
Yeah. It's been 3 years now, 4 years? Can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either. And the page has had its own journey, and
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's changes, and recently it kind of went through a big change away from what it used to be towards more of a personal page, largely because Instagram kind of sets the parameters of what they want from people, and in some ways they kind of force you to obey.
Yeah, I get that pretty well. Yeah, now they want, it was like memes and reels forever. Now it's like they want posts and photos, and I guess to differentiate from TikTok and YouTube Shorts, I guess. But what I was going to ask you was, I guess you want to just say what the original page was that I first followed you with, and then you had they cut you off, and then you just start a new one, right? Yeah.
So the first one, it's hard to describe as a weird page, and I think that's what people really liked about it. It was really a kind of,
it is hard to describe,
eccentric meme page where it's a lot of it was humorous, but a lot of it was really sentimental too. And the basic kind of premise behind it was that animals are people, and it was kind of playing with some more maybe academic ideas of nature. So a big one was the idea of getting rid of the nature culture dualism and kind of seeing humans as really situated within nature and not really separate from it. And one of the things that I started the page with was the idea that what we know of as domesticated animals, we kind of attribute a lot of personality and individuality to them, but my feelings on that are that's largely because of our proximity to them, and we're seeing their lives play out very intimately, so it's very easy to see them as exceptional to wild animals. But a lot of the content that I shared was wild animals or species that are still wild where we have more access to them personally. So I think some people would respond to the page and say, well, this animal isn't really out in the wild when it's being observed on your page or something. And my response to that is well, it's nonetheless showing that this is how the animal would act. And so it is this kind of capacity for interspecies friendships or really relating to humans in some way is in its capacity as a social animal. And so when they are raised by us or in some situation where we have a lot more access, we just get to see it more. But if it was out living in, the wild, you just wouldn't have access to that kind of rich inner life of animals. So yeah, I think I was like really driven by the point of like, we have all of this content about these like kind of viral animal moments, and I was trying to use viral content to kind of make a broader point about our relationship with animals, how we think about them, and their cognitive capacity. And I would occasionally write, in between all the memes would be some kind of essay about animal cognition and maybe recent research about it. So that was really the origin of the page.
Yeah. I think I found you. So a friend of mine or someone had sent me one of my reels from TikTok.
Yeah.
And it was Beetlejuice saying like just hanging around, and it was like my thing about like domestic wolves at human camps or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And usually when people just like use my stuff, I'm like, okay, what? But then your page, I was like, oh man, like how have I not found this? And that's how we became friends, I think. But what I saw it as was like you just took good content from TikTok or Instagram, like compiled, like it was curated, I guess.
Right.
Like, and it would be like a pigeon, like in this, eating something in New York City, but with like beautiful music, and then like nice pictures of nature, like a funny cat thing. And then you'd scroll down and it was like a really beautifully written post about either scientific or like something with your writing. So yeah, it was like an artsy, like curated thing to me. That was kind of fun.
Yeah. I think that's what most people thought of it, is like, it's a curation page, which it was. And it was, I don't know, I feel like meme pages on the internet are all kind of, it's like people who have master's degrees, like everybody who has a meme page has like some philosophy degree, and then they're also a barista instead of like working in academia. So yeah, that is what it was, is like I did too much grad school and I needed an outlet, and I knew that nobody listens to academics and nobody really cares about academic articles, but I was like really inspired by a lot that I had read. So I was like, I'm going to put this out in some kind of, basically like, I don't know, propaganda, just like putting these really, for me, meaningful things out into the world. And a lot of people kind of consume it very passively, and they don't get any of what I want them to get. But some people were like, oh, this is a very thoughtful thing. And that's, to me, like the beauty of meme pages. It's like a mass audience form of like trying to get your point across, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, it's actually really, I mean, like Shithead Steve or like Grape Juice Boys, it's like funny memes, but I think those are the big meme pages. And then like, but then there's like memes or some like interesting facts or something like that. Like those ones are always cool. It's like now I think it's like AI images of something, but it's like top 10 things you didn't know. And like, it's always well curated, but I bring that up because you mentioned a lot of it. I have noticed it is people with like some academic or scientific background, or it's like former something or other. And now, we're all just on the internet expressing ourselves through memes, which is very strange.
Totally. Yeah, it is strange. And also, I also like reveled in the strangeness of the internet. Like a lot of things that I shared. One of the themes was like people's relationship to nature and like the funny reactions to nature, or like, the backyard Nat Geo, someone observing something and having really funny commentary, or misidentifying animals. And so, I really like that part of the iPhone era, is that, growing up, all that we saw of wildlife was like these Nat Geo photographers and Planet Earth documentaries. And then, flash forward to, I'm an adult, we all have iPhones, and every time we see some wildlife interaction, the phones are out and we just get these like snippets of it. And a lot of it's really cool and a lot of it's really funny, but I love that.
I never thought of it that way. Because we had Crocodile Hunter, like those are the fun ones, and like Bill Nye and that stuff. Zaboomafoo, I guess, but that's like a kid's show. But then, you only had those docs on Nat Geo or Disney or something like that, and then or Discovery Channel. And then, now you can just, anyone can take pictures of wildlife, and like photographers came up like beautiful pictures from an iPhone too, or even if it wasn't the best picture, like the caption or like the way they explained it. It's a really good point. Like everyone can be a nature documentary, or I guess anything, but nature. So you're from Chicago, right? I think we talked about that.
Yeah, I'm from Illinois. I'm not from Chicago, but it's Illinois. I actually run into people in California all the time where I'm like, I'm from Illinois, and they're like, oh, that's in Chicago, right? And I'm like, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, some Midwest area. Yeah, Chicago's the only thing. I always think of Chicago as different than Illinois, but I guess it is Illinois.
Yeah, Chicago's within Illinois.
Yeah. And then you went to college, and then what'd you do for grad school?
So grad school, I was in political science in my undergrad. I went into a political science program thinking that I was going to get a PhD, and then that just was... I think the social sciences were like in total crisis. The funding was getting cut. There was like...
Yeah.
It was a chaotic time. I was at UIC, and a lot of people within the program were like, get out while you still can before you invest too much time. And so I did, and I transferred to outdoor education because I was like, you know what, I've started grad school. I just wasted all this time, kind of like the sunk cost fallacy. And I was like, I'm going to get a degree. And I ended up getting a master's degree in outdoor education leadership, which as soon as I did it, I was like, why have I done this? But here I am, I have it, and now I have to make something of it. So I am doing outdoor education, and I teach at some nature schools, and then I also run my own programming for adults with backpacking and camping, and I do like wildlife hikes in LA, trying to introduce like, here's what's in our city and in our county. So I do that kind of stuff right now.
Yeah. Can you define what that degree like is in, because I actually never heard of that.
Yeah, so it's a specialty degree. It's not something you get at every public school, but it was from Prescott College in Arizona, which is kind of like a school that's oriented towards careers in ecological or outdoor oriented stuff. So for example, they have like counseling and therapy programs where like they have specialties in like horse assisted therapy or wilderness adventure therapy, nature-based counseling. So they just kind of have a lot of degree programs that are options for people who want something that's more ecologically oriented, or they have like careers in like climate leadership or something. They had a degree program in like urban planning specifically for like climate resilient cities. So they have these like specialty degrees, and I did one in outdoor education.
So is that like what Outward Bound kind of is then?
Yeah, I mean, I think outdoor education, the problem with it is it's extremely broad.
Okay.
So like adventure education is one part of it. Like Outward Bound would be like an example of adventure education, and then
Gotcha.
100 other things that you could do with it. So,
well, I was going to bring up the fact that like you invited me on one of your hikes out in LA when I was out there. But yeah, it's actually kind of remarkable to see you use your degree in that way, because it's very creative, and like every time you do it, it seems like a good group of people, and you're always posting like, hey, we got space for one more kind of thing, and you're in the redwoods, then you're out just outside of LA sometimes. And how's that going? How'd that come about? I mean, I guess I know, but
yeah, I mean, I had my degree. I really like had some dreams of like what I wanted from it, and then I was in the position I think a lot of people are, where like you have this degree and you're like, oh, now I have to go out and do this. And I'm not like a natural business person or someone who is, I don't know, I'm allergic to numbers and doing taxes and all that. So the process of starting a business is like a nightmare for me. But yeah, I was like, I'm gonna ease into this while I'm still working and start throwing events and trips, and started really slow and then picked it up over time. And now I'm like really hosting a lot of trips that are special and that I'm excited about. I think there was a point during COVID that everybody had, or most people had, where it's like, wait a minute, this is the time we get to decide if we're going to keep going down like our job, corporate
exactly the same
ladder, or like rat race, or if we're going to jump ship and like make something happen. And that was actually when I switched to outdoor ed, and like was like, if I had any life, I would be working outside and meeting really cool people on these trips. Because I think the best moments of my life have always been these like adventures where I'm like going on someone else's adventure, or, backpacking trips where you're with a group of strangers or friends and you're like 6 days out in the wilderness. To me, that's when I feel the most alive. And I think I was like, I got to make this happen. And so I just started doing it and learned over time. And yeah, so now I lead trips in the redwoods and sequoias and the Boundary Waters and Appalachian Mountains. And yeah, I think my mission, part of that's for me. I want that for myself. And part of it is I'm extremely sentimental about the planet and ecosystems and biodiversity. And I know that lecturing people on the internet is not a way to win hearts and minds. Mm-hmm. And that was like repeated constantly in my master's degree. Because a big part of the master's degree in outdoor education was like climate science and environmental like issues. And, I kept reading these articles about like the ineffectiveness of like climate science to communicate to like a broad audience to care about climate. And in a lot of ways, there's like an inverse correlation with like climate news and people's like desire to take action, because there's kind of like that doom experience that people have. So what people really needed is like a sense of hope and like direct relationship with a land or water system or whatever. And when people have those moments in nature, in the wild, they're really motivated to act on it. So yeah, I think you see it like when you're an outdoor educator, you can kind of, even if it's a job and it becomes a job and you're kind of, in some way, anything you do as a career is going to become, you're going through the motions and stuff, but it's very common to experience people like experiencing nature in that way for the first time and kind of having the moments of like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and be outside all the time. And like, or I'm going to quit my job because it's a part of this problem and I can't stand to see this wilderness area be logged, or now all the water being diverted for data centers or whatever. But yeah, I mean, people act when they have those like really profound experiences. So I really care about that, and in some small way, it's kind of the perfect way to align your job with something you care about.
Yeah, and I don't know if you maybe have this in your field too, but for archaeology and anthropology in the States, you have to take what's called a field school. And I guess for the audience listening, you might know, but like it's where you're doing field work, and usually you're camping out or you're like in some kind of remote area. If you're doing like prehistoric archaeology, if you're in Rome, you're probably doing it at a hotel. But here in the States, like I was out camping outside, like at a river in Nashville. In undergrad, I was doing like the Savannah River in South Carolina, just camping out, and you're with a bunch of people who, it's not like high school where everyone's just there, or it's not like college where you're just taking a math class because you have to, but you're a bunch of anthropology students all curious about the ancient world and human history and stuff and human culture, all camping out, digging holes like in the wilderness, doing physical manual labor. And it's kind of a litmus test for, if you don't want to do this career, people immediately hate it and you can tell they quit day one, or it's like the best time of your life. And my field school was one of the best times of my life, and that field summer I had. And I was like, oh, I can have a career just outside digging holes, like in nature, in these pretty places. And then you got to go to a Walmart in like the middle of nowhere to get like soap or something, and you got to deal with the locals. But all that said, when I, go to my friend's field school that he's running now as a professor, it's cool seeing like, they're like children. I'm 34 now, so it's like they're 21, 19. But these kids experiencing exactly what I experienced, where it's like you're in a group of people all interested in the same thing, having like the best time of your life. And like you can tell which ones don't like it and which ones just are clearly going to excel. And then seeing some that have gone on to the field, now they're in grad school and stuff. It's just really cool. But I guess all that to say, like, yeah, profoundly, it was all outside. I think when I think back to archaeology, it was the being outside thing. So what do you think that is for people? Like, I guess if you have people that, come out and this is their first big wilderness experience or something like that, like, what have you noticed?
I think that's the hardest question to answer, because, and I love this question, but like, there's all this research. There's a ton of research about access to nature and mental health. And basically there's, there's an abundance of research that suggests birdsong, looking at trees, going on hikes, like all these things have as significant mental health benefits as like the best medicine or whatever. You know, it's very convincing and reaffirmed that being out in nature has this like healing effect, and it can be grounding, and it can, you know, do all these things for wellness. But then the question becomes like, what's the causal factor in that? Like, okay, yeah, obviously there's a correlation, but what's actually the cause? You can probably never, you know, it's not really like falsifiable. It's probably too many things. But for me, I think about it like, I think our culture is pathological. I think that the things we experience in modern society are probably not normal in any way. And I think a big part of what it means to be like in an industrial culture is like control. Everything is controlled. You know, the cities, you know, it's like, what do you do if wildlife is all of a sudden in the city? Is like, you got to call someone. And this example that I always use is like when I was growing up, there was a creek behind our house, and a beaver moved in, and it was like all of the families are like, oh my God, what are we going to do with the beaver? And, you know, it was like this like horrible pest to them. It was going to like ruin their grass or whatever. And, you know, as a kid and even now, I'm like, why wouldn't you want a beaver in your backyard? That's awesome. You know?
It's super cool.
Yeah, it's creating a habitat back there. As soon as there's a beaver, now there's going to be whatever. You would think that you would want that, but you don't. Anyway, my point being like, we live in these like high control societies, and that becomes like built into the very infrastructure of the city, right? There's like cameras everywhere. There's like all these things to make sure everything is like, you know, a perfect commodity. Everything is like control based. And it's, when you get out into the wilderness, especially, there's this like, I can think of one example of a person who expressed, like vocally expressed like what it is when people experience like coming from the city out into the wilderness. And this guy was like, oh, like, who did this? Like, how is this all here? You know, like who's mowing this or who's trimming the trees? It was like, basically it's like a shock when you look out at this thing that, you know, there's not a lot of humans who look out at like a forest and don't think that it's beautiful. Like that would be a rare experience or a huge outlier. So then you're like, this city person's mind is like, oh, so who did this? Like who made this? Because it's like a foreign idea when you're in LA or Chicago or New York to be like, oh, all of this is non-humans. This is birds, this is beavers, this is deer. They're making this. And so, you know, it's this moment of stepping out of the city, going into the wilderness, and being in this forest and being like, who the hell is up to all this? Like, who made everything look this way? And
they assume like, somebody planted the trees and put the animals there as a
and I don't think that this person literally thought that, but it was like you could see the wheels turning where it's like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? And because it's so perfect, and it's like nobody's controlling it, is what I took from it. Because if you look at like a traffic jam, if you look at downtown LA, like everything is controlled. There's like this light turns at this time, you know, this traffic person makes sure that everybody follows it, and then you go to a court system. It's just so much control, and then you get out. I think the wild is something where it's like so many different types of agencies. This beaver is a part of the forest, but it doesn't mean he gets along with everything. And in a lot of ways, the rivalries, the cooperations, all these competing interests is what makes it what it is. And I think that's what is like blows people's minds. And that's what I feel so enchanting. I love the word enchanting, but I feel like it's an enchanting experience when you're like, oh, we had nothing to do with this, and we're just one of many agencies that can make this what it is. And I think it humbles people. Like, people are like, oh, I'm just a small piece of this planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Like it, especially for someone who's not been, I grew up in Long Island, so there is nature, but it's still very urban. Like it's a suburb of Manhattan. But like going upstate over the summer, like to my aunt's like horse farm, and like a horse farm is giving it a lot of like, it's buffering it, but like, yeah, just like her plot of land where there's some horses and like a nice river. And like, I would just be like flabbergasted, like how much you could just like, I could go outside to these hills. I could go up this, I could go to the forest. I did sleepaway camp when I was a kid like the classic wet hot American summer kind of thing, where there's a lake and like just as I'm not a city kid, but that it was just, I knew there was like a different world out there, and like, oh, more than half the country probably lives in something like this, and I always wanted to. So when I came to grad school out here in Wyoming, it was like the first day I saw the Milky Way out here for the first time was like vertigo, because I'd seen Orion and the moon and maybe Mars or Venus, and then like this crazy thing in the sky that's like hurts your face to like see the whole thing. So I get, and I'm a nature oriented person, I guess, and like I have I guess formal training in like science and biology or whatever, but for like some random person that's like never got, I don't know, I guess I'm not answering your question too correctly, but I do understand what you're saying. Yeah. And then I don't know, what was your first nature experience like that as a kid?
Oh, I should probably think about this more, but I had like a pretty traditional like Midwest approach to nature, which is that my experience of nature was not like what people would expect. I didn't grow up like doing national parks and stuff like that. I didn't have granola parents, but I did like go fishing with my grandpa and my dad, and like that was like how, that's how men in the Midwest do nature. It's like you got to be fishing, you got to be hunting or whatever. It's not a lot of like, it's different than California in that in California, I feel like kids grow up doing like climbing and national parks and stuff like that. And not to say that nobody in the Midwest does that, but I didn't go to a national park for the first time until I was like 20 years old. And I went camping like a couple times with my dad, but I don't really remember the first kind of like awe experiences, but I do remember that like my dad and my grandpa would have like just a lot of reverence for nature, even though they weren't super nature people. It was just kind of like this thing that it was almost like church families being like, if you were like messing around in church, they might correct you. I feel like that's how my dad and my grandpa were with nature. It's just like there's a certain treatment of it as like, this is a special place and we get to have this when we would go out. And so I think that became a part of my like intro to it. But then I've had these beautiful moments where I'm just kind of like awestruck, and in some ways it becomes addicting. But like, I raised that bird, which was like a big part of my journey.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I raised a baby bird. It was a starling, so it couldn't. The rehabbers couldn't take it because starlings are invasive, and they basically told me it can die. You can just let it die, or you can try to raise it yourself, but your chances of it surviving are like tiny. Because this was like a newborn bird, and all his siblings had already died. He was in the middle of like a downtown street. He was like on the sidewalk frying in the sun, and I ended up taking him home, and he survived, and I raised him, and that was like a pretty formative experience as like my relationship to nature, because
was that in LA?
That was in Illinois. But it was a bizarre experience because I was like a full-on parent. It was like constant feeding and cleaning and teaching. And it was really like the whole experience of being a parent, where like I remember his first yawn and like his first like wing flapping, and I'd be like, oh my God, he's doing this thing, like taking pictures and just so like in love with the thing. And then, long story short, I raised this thing, and he was like slowly becoming, a bird, and I got to watch him like learn. And that was a bizarre experience because you're kind of watching what's instinctual and what's learned, and they do need both.
Yeah.
And there was like a lot of really wild experiences that I got to have. Like there's a family of starlings that lived on top of my house. And so I got to see the interaction where like my starling was like, am I one of them or am I one of you? It was like this moment where he tried to join the starling family. And at first the mom like kind of checked him and was like, you're not one of us. But then I even have a video of this. It's so crazy. This starling of mine is like out in the yard, basically foraging for bugs. And there's a cat, like an alley cat nearby. And the mama starling came and started giving a distress call, like freaking out at my bird, like letting him know that there's this cat nearby. So it was like a call.
An unrelated bird?
Yeah, the mom bird that lived on my roof, which
Oh, I gotcha.
at first she was like not having him. She's like didn't want to take him in because he was still small and he was like following her, and she was just like basically checked him. And then, but then like days later, there's like this cat, and she like goes out of her way, and she's like right over him and just like screaming like, "Hey, there's a cat over there," and alerting him. And so, you know, this weird interaction where I'm kind of watching him kind of learn to be a bird, and then fly. He started flying with these starlings when they became like adolescents. You know, they just had their first adult feathers coming in. They were flying, and he starts flying around with them. I got to like watch him join them on other roofs and stuff. And then it was another one of those like nature is not metal stories. Like the whole thing that I was after was kind of this like, well, there's personhood and individuality in all these creatures, and that's what makes Earth so crazy, is that there's trillions of these minds and experiences. And with him, so starlings form murmurations, and they join these huge groups that fly together in those weird bird clouds, basically. If you know,
I've never heard that word. Cool.
Yeah, murmurations. Like it's like all these starlings get together and they fly together in this crazy pattern, and so they make this cloud. Yeah, and you've probably seen it, but then, you just have this thought of like this bird that I raised, who went through so much and is a weirdo raised by humans. He's out there flying with starlings, and it's like, oh, each one of these has their individual story and experience and personality. And it's just a different look, I think, at wildlife in that way.
That's really cool, man. I don't know how to segue to this, but it was in my mind when you were talking. So I was this might be just for the audience listening, it's kind of rough, but we were on a site working on a military base in Wyoming. They were shelling the ground, and they like testing missiles or whatever. And it's a National Guard base, but they had the archaeologists go in and make sure there's no stuff. And of course there's like Shoshone shit everywhere. So the whole place was like, you can't shoot here, but it was also a ranch land. And there was this cow that like we saw vultures circling, and I heard like the craziest sound I'd ever heard. And like in the distance, I was like, what is it? Got closer. It was this cow like screaming for its baby who was stuck on the other side of the fence, but the vultures were circling. And it must have just gotten, stuck when they were driving the cattle, couldn't find its way back. And my friend ran to, pick it up, but it's a baby calf. It's heavy. And the ranchers were just like, we got to put it down. But that like bellowing scream, like that cow sound and it was like right there through the barbed wire. Couldn't get to its baby. Just so sad. But like that fundamentally changed. Like I was in grad school researching dogs and human ecology and stuff, and like how mammal intelligence, I think. And I know you were talking about birds, but that motherly, because like the mom, that's what reminded me. The mother bird calling, warning of the cat, the sound of that cow, like I will not forget it because it was so rough. But that mammalian, bond is like chemical, innate, and no one taught that cow that. And it's like, oh man, like that's biological. I don't know, that it's kind of a rough story, but like,
no, totally.
It always stuck with me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I really hate like a lot of the discourse around animal intelligence, because you'll hear this like word anthropomorphizing, like, oh, you're anthropomorphizing. Yeah. I hate that word because of course there's like a kernel of truth that some people can anthropomorphize and kind of flatten other animals' experience or maybe project too much. But there's also the problem, there's like a primatologist who came up with the word. His name's Francis DeWall. Someone certainly will listen and correct my name if I got it wrong. But anyway, he had this term called anthropodenial, where he's basically like, you can go too far the other way, where you deny like the similar characteristics that we share with animals. And basically the point being that like our amygdala and thalamus and whatever, these are all like outgrowths that we've received from previous mammals. And it's not like, oh, we got a new one, like our brain's different. It's an outgrowth. And so there's the same hardware that we're operating with, of course, different accents and stuff, but the basic kind of way that evolution works is through emotions like fear and attachment. So, there's that kind of universal experience, whether it's a cow or a human or whatever, a bird, that kind of inner emotional life is just how evolution gets you to survive, you know?
Yeah. You're a very eloquent speaker, by the way. I'm
Thank you.
continually impressed by the words you're using. I'm like, oh,
Thank
damn,
you.
you do this for a living. But yeah, like we have a lot of rabbits out here in Laramie, Wyoming, that like the big high plains rabbits, like I guess they are jackrabbits, but run around, and there's pronghorn that come into town and like eat the grass and stuff. But like, it's literally the plains. But I always like have that, like when a rabbit sees a hawk or something like that, like it doesn't have the most, intel. It's not a chimp. It's not a human, but it has like, I'm hungry. And then it has like just stone cold, like blood curdling fear when it sees a coyote, and it runs. And like
Right.
that when, in talking about 2020 and COVID and stuff, I had like crazy anxiety, and I was like, I have to get out of this house. It was just me and my dog. And I was like, this is not like all that anxiety and like experiencing so much of it. I was like, oh, that's what an animal feels, just like it's on and off like that. And like as a human, that anxiety is now put towards like Iran or, my credit card payment or something like that. And then we come up, those are real things, but then the fake scenarios of like, that guy didn't make eye contact with me. Like, do I suck? And then like but in a rabbit, it's that tiny little thing. Am I on the right track? I mean, I guess no one really knows.
No, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like that's something I've thought about before, is like people being like, you have like cruelty towards like bugs or like fish or something, and people will be like, well, they're so stupid. And I always thought like that's a funny way to think about it, because I think if something like doesn't have like a large frontal cortex or something, that where it's like this like higher order thinking that we think with, I'm like, that kind of makes it worse to be cruel, because really it's just like the fear processing is like massive, it's like,
yeah, they have like three emotions.
Yeah, it's like mostly what they're experiencing is just like horrible pain, rather than like the meaning making about their pain or whatever. I always thought that's like a really poor way to think about like the mistreatment. You know what I mean? For that very reason, is like fear is the driver of like survival in predator-prey relationships. So it's like it's very obviously experienced in like a intense way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm definitely inclined to agree on that. And I'm not vegan or vegetarian. I was vegetarian for a bit, I guess pescatarian. But like watching something of like, a slaughterhouse with pigs, like I still can't, like it's just rough because it's a fellow, like a mammalian brother, like getting, killed or whatever. It's hard to watch. But yes, I think like when they have not less intelligence, but they're not, they're not a chimp. Yeah. It is just, I'm hungry. I want to reproduce. I'm scared. Like it's something like that. And obviously pigs are very intelligent, but where I was going with that. Right. Wolf and dog domestication. Like, so part of the book I'm writing is, I want to talk about that too, like the nature aspect to it, but also just the way that humans and dogs began interacting was based, like the leading theory is flight distance. So whether a wolf was less scared or more scared enough to come near human camps and things like that. So the ones that persist today as dogs had less fear and could come closer to camps and things like that. So it's that initial, what are these primates with fire, and there's probably singing, and they're wearing the skins of a bite, like it must be terrifying to an animal, but they're coming up to human camps, so they're braving it. So it can change over time.
That concludes the end of this episode. Please stay tuned next week for part 2, where the discussion gets, a lot more deep and more philosophical about the nature of humans and animals and our relationship to them. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. The Archaeology Podcast Network's chief editor is Rachel Roden. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy. Our social media and newsletter coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht. The APN was founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle on December 1st, 2014. We're supported by our amazing podcast hosts, many volunteers, and listeners like you. Check out membership at www.archpodnet.com/members.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.